The last time I saw my family, I was a disgrace, a pariah in my own home. "You're chasing shadows," they laughed, their voices like nails scraping against a chalkboard, echoing the disbelief that clung to me like a shroud. I was a scientist, a once promising agro-scientist, until I dared to speak of the unthinkable. That the pest outbreak devastating our crops was not natural, but a product of something insidious, something beyond our understanding. They had fired me, humiliated me, and sent me fleeing into the dark embrace of the wild. A wild now haunted by supernatural botanical killers. Years slipped by like the seasons, each one adding layers to my obsession, thickening the roots of my research. I scoured remote towns, documenting grotesque flora that twisted reality itself. I learned the language of cursed plants, their whispers weaving through my dreams, revealing horrors that lived beneath the soil and beyond the light. Yet every time I hesitated, every time a sliver of doubt crept in, I could hear my family's mocking laughter, a reminder of what I had lost. But I was no longer the object of ridicule. I was an expert now, a curator of horrors, a tragic hero carrying knowledge that the world now feared but could not ignore. I arrived back at the family home with a heart pounding with both dread and vindication. The familiar sight of the old house, its paint peeling like the skin of a forgotten dream, sent chills racing down my spine. Nothing had changed. Yet everything was different. The air felt charged, electric with unspoken truths, and I could sense the weight of their disbelief still clinging to the walls. They stood huddled on the porch, eyes wide with what could only be described as disbelief. My sister, with her perfect hair and pristine figure, clutched her children like shields against my madness. My parents had aged, their faces lined with years of worry, the kind that only comes from denying reality. I felt the unyielding grip of their judgment pressing against me, but I had come armed with the truth. "Do you remember the night I left?" I began, my voice steady despite the quivering in my chest. "I told you there was something out there, something you couldn't comprehend. You said I'd lose my mind." Their silence screamed louder than their laughter ever had. "I have seen things," I continued, stepping closer, my heart racing. "Things that haunt the roots of our existence. Plants that don't just grow, they consume. They twist and meld and morph into eldritch horrors, feeding on fear and despair. The world has changed, and so have I." I reached into my bag, hands trembling as I pulled out a small glass vial containing a sickly green ooze. It glimmered ominously in the sunlight, like a terrible secret begging to be unleashed. "This," I said, voice barely above a whisper, "is the essence of Erisif malevolens. It infects the soil, turning everything it touches into a nightmare." My family recoiled, fear flickering in their eyes, but I pressed on. "You think I'm insane? Let me show you what I've learned." As I unscrewed the vial, a pungent aroma filled the air, thick and rancid, a visceral reminder of the horrors I had endured. I poured a single drop onto the ground, and within moments, the earth trembled. The grass writhed and curled, roots breaking the surface, twisting into grotesque caricatures of themselves. A fine mist began to rise, obscuring the yard, thickening like a living tapestry woven from nightmares. My family's terrified gasps echoed in the haze as the ground pulsated, a heartbeat thrumming beneath our feet. From the mist, spectral forms emerged, punished souls trapped within the plants I had studied, their faces twisted in agony, mouths stretched in silent screams. I had warned them. I had begged them to see the truth. "Each droplet contains a history," I said, voice trembling with fervor, "a memory of everything this land has hidden. It feeds on our disbelief, our fear. You've mocked me for too long. Now you see what you've dismissed." As the specters reached for my family, eyes wide with horror, flashes of recognition ignited their faces. Their laughter had buried the truth, had suffocated my findings beneath the scorn of ignorance. I watched as the weight of their disbelief transformed into an awakening nightmare, a revelation that the horror I had faced was very real. I had been a fool, a desperate fool, but now the truth was inescapable. Terror gripped them as the specters lunged forward, but I felt a rush of vindication. This was the cost of ridicule, the bitter fruit of denial. I had survived, and now they would understand. The moment lingered, thick and suffocating, until the figures suddenly dissipated, the ground quieting, the air still once more. In the aftermath, my family stood shivering, pale as ghosts, staring at me with a mixture of fear and newfound respect. You were right," my father stammered, the words tasting bitter on his tongue. "I never believed." As I met his gaze, a shiver of pity coursed through me. They were trapped in their own ignorance, now held captive by the very disbelief that had once mocked me. I felt hollow, the shared blood and history weighing heavily upon my chest. Walking away from their fearful stares, I knew the truth would always haunt them, a chilling reminder of what they had scorned. They would bear the burden of their disbelief, while I would carry the weight of knowledge. I stepped into the fading sunlight, the shadows of the past and the horrors of the present trailing behind me like a mournful echo, a reminder that the darkness contained within nature is not just something to be studied, but a reality to be feared. In my triumph, I had become a warning, a testament to the cost of failing to recognize the supernatural lurking just beneath the surface. And as the final light slipped away, I felt it, the chilling realization that the roots of my family's disbelief ran deeper than they could ever understand.